So we're going to continue this week talking about logo development as we sort of go into our um, rough stage where we create our roughs from our sketches. So at this point, you should have a lot of different sketches in place for your restaurant. You should have a really clear idea what you want your design to accomplish. And you've done some research where you thought about your target audience and you have written up your restaurant profile. And you have some nice, strong examples of competitor logos or logos that interest you or excite you. So that's where we're at. And the next stage is kind of going into developing our roughs. So as we continue this week, we're gonna talk more about what makes a logo successful, and also kind of talk more about process. How do you go from the brainstorming stage of drawing your sketches to the next phase, which is creating more comprehensive black and white grayscale designs. Okay, so talking about process. A logo is a graphic representation that identifies a company, product, or brand. So we know that. Sometimes referred to as an emblem or mark, a logo can be typographic, pictorial, or abstract. Logo design can be divided into 3 distinct steps. So we've already gone through step 1, and now we're going to kind of go into step 2. But let's talk about good logo design first. So first, I know we've discussed this a little bit last week. We'll look at the Beats logo. What makes the Beats logo successful? First thing is it's very simple. It's just negative and positive space. And when you look at it, you know that Beats is selling the headphone products, and you see that in the actual design of the bee. So it's communicating on 2 different levels. First, it's communicating the idea of the bee, and next you can kind of get the idea of the headphones through the rendering of the bee in the circle. So it is recognizable, the red and white make it bright, and it's really easy to pair with other things for marketing because it's so simple. Domino's Pizza was started by 2 brothers in Michigan. I think it was in, I want to say the 70s, but I could be off by 5 or 10 years. And when they first designed this logo, it was a 3-location business. And so they put these 3 dots in the dice, or dominoes, I guess, and they wanted to add dots as they opened more businesses. Now we know that thousands of dominoes have opened, so that became impossible. It would have been impossible to add that many dots. But that was kind of the concept. And the thing is, if you notice the Domino's logo, it has stayed consistent throughout all these years that the company has been open. It's been only modified in the fact that they took away the text and the text pizza, and they left Domino's in, and sometimes they just use this symbol. And because the company is so well known, it's fine. You don't need the text with it. People understand what this symbol means because of the recognition of the brand. They also took away the text, the pizza text, because they wanted to kind of branch out, and they wanted Domino's to be more than just a company that sold pizza. They sell other things like, I'm not sure, breadsticks, chicken wings. Not exactly sure what Domino's sells, but they didn't want to be tied just to pizza, so they took that out of their name. Looking at the HP logo, there's an acronym used by designers sometimes that helps us remember that we should keep our logos simple. It's called KISS, and it's Keep It Simple Stupid. Now that seems a little bit offensive, but the reason it's there is because a good logo should be simple, because it will allow it to then be used in so many different ways. If it's too complicated, too ornate, too decorative, then it's going to have a really hard time scaling. And it's also it's going to dominate everything you put it into. So keeping it simple helps it be very versatile. So HP has always had a really strong logo. They're also using a circle. You notice that. Why do so many companies that have logos use circles? One of the reasons is that circles conceptually are very appealing to people. They have no beginning or end. They represent the eternal whole in culture, in some cultures. They are the idea of a circle is that they suggest community, integrity, and perfection. They also offer safety and connection. They confine what's within and keep things out. So they're a really good frame for a logo. They have kind of a free movement. They can roll. They are warm, comforting. They give a sense of security. They also suggest energy and power. And the completeness suggests infinite unity and harmony. So when you look at kind of these ideas behind shapes and you start studying the psychology of shapes, you notice that the circle is very powerful. And so a lot of companies use it to kind of constrain, and then they'll actually take the negative positive relationship of the circle and turn it into the graphic. So HP used this circle and it has used it for years. They recently, though, redesigned their logo in 2016. So here's the new rendition of their logo. And you can see it's much more abstracted. So the H and the P are still there, but if you look at it, you just see these seamless lines. This is getting a lot of play on design blogs. People like this. It first appeared on the HP's thinnest laptop, the HP Spectre. And it's just getting a lot of attention. And they actually took away the circle, but because this is such a simple, strong concept, it might serve their company well. So the next thing, we've talked about simplicity, needing to keep a logo simple. The next thing is a logo needs to be memorable. So this isn't actually an example of a simple logo per se, but it's very memorable. You think about it, I like the way that the shapes are becoming these parts of the letter shapes, and you actually look at it, you think about it, you're attracted to it. So it is important that you kind of bring something in that that makes you look, and often a logo is memorable because it's simple and effective and appropriate. So if you kind of achieve that simplicity and it's appropriate for your product, then often it sticks in people's minds. So Parker Solutions Group, this is another nice logo. I like the seamless way the P and the A kind of combine together, and it's a beautiful font. I'm sure this font was created by the design firm that created the logo. And then notice if you scale it, Solutions Group just fits perfectly underneath, and it actually is very legible when you make this logo small. Going to Starbucks. Starbucks has one of the most famous logos out there, and it's very appealing because it's so memorable. So how did they get the idea for this figure in the center of the Starbucks circle? So in 1971, when Starbucks was first kind of coming into its own and it was searching for an identity, it was thinking about the seafaring history of coffee and Seattle's strong seaport roots. So that was kind of an idea in the founder's mind. And so what they did is they looked at old marine books in collaboration with their design team, and they found this 16th century Norse woodcut of a twin-tailed mermaid, or siren, as she's called. And there was just something about her. They were attracted to the seductive mystery mixed with the nautical theme. It was kind of exactly what the founders were looking for. So a logo was designed around her, and so our long relationship with this siren began. At first, they included the Starbucks coffee in their logo and the circle, notice. But then they kind of eliminated the text because, as you know, Starbucks did branch out as well. Kind of like Domino's, Starbucks started offering other products. It's become more, food. A lot of people are thinking of Starbucks as the new fast food company. And so they wanted to make it about more than just coffee. And because this icon is so memorable and people understand this brand and it's been around for so long, they can do this. But it is just a very beautiful symbol for the company. And because of that connection to the Seattle seaport roots, I think it really was effective. So PlayStation, this is actually one of my favorite logos. And when the PlayStation brand was being conceptualized in 1994, more than 36 logo concepts were presented for final selection. The iconic PlayStation logo used these particular bright colors because they thought that they symbolized joy, passion, and excellence. And they used a Japanese designer to create this logo. His name was Manabu Sakamoto, and he designed a few other logos for Sony. He's pretty well known in Japan. And this PlayStation logo is regarded as one of the most instantly recognizable and memorable logos in the gaming industry. And it also looks great in black and white. So we'll look at this a little bit later in the lecture, but every logo you create needs to be able to translate easily into black and white for a variety of reasons. So creating a memorable brand, these companies that create memorable brands, the logos are timeless. They transcend and they keep going, and you don't need to change a logo if it's a really successful design. If it's kind of trendy or it reminds you of something else, it's just not going to work. So another beautiful logo, World Wildlife Foundation, the panda, and just love when you can kind of create a logo that uses that negative space to your advantage, it can really be successful. Adidas. So Adidas is a very successful logo, and the 3 lines in this logo were supposed to look like a mountain and represent the obstacles that people need to overcome when they start to become fit. So that was kind of the symbolism. And what's nice about those mountains is you can put them in products seamlessly. They can go in a lot of different design elements. You can pair them with the Adidas text. Most of the time this logo is paired with the text, or you can kind of use them on their own. The NBC logo, RCA, which was the original company for NBC, wanted people who were watching black and white television to know what they were missing. So they created this colorful logo. It's one of the first really successful multicolor logos. And I think it's because of that concept, because color television, they were kind of bringing this logo out right as color television was emerging, and this attracted their clients. Mobile, the importance of this logo is its colors. The red is a really powerful color, and when we get into the color theory portion of this class, we'll talk more about it. But it represents strength, and blue represents faithfulness and security. So this text is very simple and versatile, and they did kind of manipulate the size of the O there a tiny bit. And because of the colors, though, this logo really is memorable, and you look at it and are attracted to it. Amazon. So the face kind of has a double meaning. It kind of looks like a smiley face, so some people think that's the meaning. But the main mission is to make their customers happy, and so that's the smiley face idea. But notice the arrow is pointing from the A to the Z, and this represents the fact that Amazon has such a large variety of items for sale from A to Z. So they wanted to really stress that with this arrow going all the way through A to Z. Every item you can imagine is sold on Amazon. So just a great collection of memorable symbols and combination marks, because if you look at them and you're thinking about the goals of a logo, simplicity, all of these kind of fit that. Memorable. And why do we want them to be simple and memorable? So that we attract customers, we make people look, and they are very versatile. And really important, they have to look good in black and white. A successful logo should always start with black. And that's because you need to focus on the concept and the shape. Once you start adding color, it becomes very subjective. So the key to creating a versatile logo is starting with black and white. And if it doesn't work in black and white, then it's not going to work overall, because you sometimes have to print it in black and white. There might be reasons for marketing it in black and white, and you have to understand the basic shape of it and what that's communicating, and then you enhance it with the color. So for this week, you're going to start out with your sketches. You're going to choose 3 of them, and you're going to go design each of those 3 unique logos for your company in grayscale. And then after you get really good grayscale designs, we're then going to jump into color. So it's really important that you follow that part of the process. And here's just some more examples of that. So the last thing that we'll talk about is logos should definitely be appropriate. So it needs to be appropriate for its intended purpose. No matter how creative you are, how cool of a symbol you design, if it doesn't communicate the goals of the company or the identified adjectives that you've kind of put in your mind to describe the goals, then it's just not going to be a successful logo. So really think about that. And that's why I want you to anytime you do any design work, you really need to understand your company well. And that's why we stress that client profile and why I want you to spend time on it and not just jump into the designing stage, which is easy to do. You just kind of start rendering, you start drawing, but you really have to kind of think about it and see what it is that you're trying to communicate. So a great example of a logo that's very timeless and successful, and I know I showed this last week, but it's the Coca-Cola logo. And all you really need to do is compare this Coca-Cola logo to the Pepsi logo to see how successful Coca-Cola was in contrast to the early Pepsi-Cola logos. Pepsi-Cola had to switch its whole identity and create a whole new logo for itself because its original version was just not as memorable and classic as the Coca-Cola one. So looking at these big chains, you see that often you get describable, effective without color, memorable, and scalable. Those are kind of the things that we're aiming for with logo design. And here it is in its full glory here. So you also want to give your client some options, and you want to be able to design a lot of different types of logos. So word mark logos, pictorial combination logos, emblem logos, so that's a logo in an enclosed shape, a lettermark logo, so sometimes it's really appropriate, especially if that company has a really long name, abstract logos, and character logos. So you're at this point now. You need to look at your sketches, analyze and define what you're trying to represent, and that's done through thinking, writing, and sketching. You have developed a list of attributes and characteristics that best represent your company. Every thought and idea is relevant in this stage of the process. So in the ideation stage, you're not holding back. You're going in as many different directions as you can. And that's what I hope to see in your sketches. Sometimes when I look at student sketches, I see a clever idea, but then it's just redone and slightly altered. You shouldn't do that. If you have a clever idea, force your mind to jump away from that and go in a different direction. And then when you go back and choose that clever idea, if it's still your favorite after you've done all this ideation, then you're going to do some variations on that logo or that design to make sure it's the most successful solution. So if you're including typography in your logo and you're going to choose a font that exists on the computer already, or in, there's all these libraries that you can go to and look at different fonts. There's DeFont. If you need some help with this, just ask me, because Illustrator, the version that we might be using in the lab, is pretty limited in the number of fonts they have, but there's so many different fonts out there. And what I recommend is that you do kind of a side-by-side comparison where you change the font out, and in one version you have it with a tiny serif, in another it's a sans serif font. Then you might go into more of a novelty font. You might go bold or really thin. So think about how each experiment, each time you change the font, and if you do these side-by-side comparisons, you can look at how it changes the personality and attitude, and really try and think of type as image. What is it communicating? And is that communication really successfully communicating the goals that you've outlined for your company. Another solution is to turn your ideas into form. Think of ways to visually represent the most important attributes using symbols and icons. Explore various fonts. Look for formal, geometric, and formal relationships using typography and individual letters. And we are gonna design these logos in color, but like I said, we're waiting. We're trying to get the shapes right, get the concepts perfect, and then we will start to experiment with color. And once you get a clear concept, you've applied the color, which we'll talk about next week, and you prepare the logo for public, sometimes it's really helpful to just actually put that logo anywhere you think it might go. So we'll definitely design a business card in here, but you might also experiment with putting it on products, thinking about what it would look like. And there's different ways we can kind of do this. And sometimes when you do a mock-up for a company and you're showing them different variations of a logo, you would do this. You would actually show them what the logo looked like on specific products. So here's where you are now. You're going to choose your 3 strongest designs, and you're going to start to develop them into strong grayscale solutions. And you're going to still experiment. So you're going to get your grayscale solution into the computer, and then you're going to tweak it a little bit. So today we're going to go through, or not today, but this week we're going to go through and we're going to look at our strongest solutions, then we're going to scan them in, and we might vectorize them in Illustrator. So I have a tutorial on that you can look at, or I'll talk about it during the lab. And then you're going to tweak it. You can still tweak it once you digitize it. This might also be the point where you start adding, you have a symbol you've designed and you start adding different fonts and looking at different fonts and how it changes the design. And then of course we're going to start to add the color and then design it into a business card. And here's this particular logo in a website. Okay, and let's look at another couple of solutions. Here's a brainstorming session for the company Dynamics. 3 solutions have been identified in the rough sketches, and then it's going into grayscale solutions, but there's a lot of variation that's occurring, a lot of experimentation that still occurs, and a lot of side-by-side comparison when you digitize it. So don't just commit. I guess what I'm trying to say is you've done your ideation, you have 3 strong ideas, but you still need to do that experimentation to find the best possible solution. So you can play with opacity, you can play with fonts, where the word or the initials are placed in relation to the symbol. So there's still a lot you can do. And you never know what the right solution is until you do this side-by-side comparison. And then eventually you get to a point where you have a really strong logo, and it's going to go seamlessly into whatever you want to design. In this case, for the purposes of this class, it will be a business card. Okay, so here's a student from last semester, and she has her sketches, and then I'll just show you her 3 final logos, which actually turned out really nice. And so that's what you're going to accomplish this week. So before I end this lecture, I just wanted to show you the history of the Prudential logo, which is kind of fun. So Prudential is an insurance company that has a long history. And as you look at the graphic design changes over the decades, you can really see it in their logo design and the choices they made every decade as they kind of redesigned, tweaked, simplified, abstracted, and they were really kind of going with the current design trends of the time. So we'll just kind of start out with their initial logo here, which is just so ornate and decorative. And this logo was designed in 1860. So back in the late 1800s, there wasn't much brand identity. So sometimes people had logos, but they often were kind of like this. They had a lot of ornate detail. and a lot of information in there. So you see that this company is just starting out. So the Prudential has the strength of Gibraltar was their tagline, which is actually a really nice tagline for an insurance company. Then in 1870, you see they started to constrain it a little, and they actually put even more information in there. But this kind of looks like an ad to me, so it's showing us everything about the company it possibly can in this small space. So it still has Prudential, the strength of Gibraltar, but then they have both sexes, life insurances, ages 1 to 70, the amounts $15 to $50,000, which I guess was a lot of money back then, right? And it's more like an ad than a logo. And then they kind of, they've been around for a while in the 1890s. And so they're kind of proud of themselves. They put their founder's name in there, John F. Dryden, but they still have the Prudential, Strength of Gibraltar, and Pioneer of Industrial Insurance in America. In a logo nowadays, you would never put this much text in. It's just too much. You wouldn't be able to scale this logo at all. And so as they kind of go, 1910, they're starting to simplify. They have that mountain a little bit abstracted. They've taken out kind of that textural element. They still have all their information that they want to communicate. Then they kind of experiment with the framing and they take out all the text. So in 1920, they've been around for a while. I don't know when the founder died. I don't exactly know that year, but that became less important. And they just wanted to put their tagline in there. And then in 1940, you can see that they changed the mountain again, and they're kind of putting these lines in here, and they're kind of playing with a more of an abstract feel with the bottom of the design. And you can see where this kind of goes. They circle it again, and they take out the text altogether. They still have that rock, the mountain of Gibraltar, the rock of Gibraltar in there. But they start to abstract it and simplify it and make it more versatile and use that negative space so it becomes very abstracted. And they keep going with this. So in 1984, this was their logo, simple lines. Now they did kind of bring it back a little bit. This is the final rendition that I have, but they have more of a mountain shape in this logo, but they're still using that circle that we talked about before and that positive negative space relationship, which is really nice because it'll make it very easy to kind of go into a lot of different things, and using that space makes it memorable as well. So I'm excited to see your grayscale solutions. Take time on it, keep brainstorming, and then know that we will be quickly moving into color next week.